it's Sailor Smoke. Welcome to the Brain XP community. I hope you feel at home. In today's video, I'm answering your guys' questions that you sent me about teen mental hospitals and my teen mental hospital experience, so let's get right on into it. So I was actually only in the hospital for 5 days, but when I was discharged, I went back to an outpatient program and I was in that program for 3 years. I was actually the one who realized that I needed to go there. I was going down a very dark path. I was self-harming in many different ways. So it wasn't shocking to me that I ended up there, but I had no idea what it was going to be like. It was definitely meeting the other patients there. My roommate was super cool, but I also met someone who had obsessive compulsive disorder, and she was literally the kindest and strongest person I've ever met, and I really wish we could have stayed in touch. But definitely meeting the other patients was the best part in terms of my favorite part of going there. So I'm not a mental health professional, but as far as I know, the main reasons that you might have to go to a mental hospital is because you are a danger to yourself or to others. I was there because I was a danger to myself and I was self-harming. And please feel free to leave a comment if you have any more information about why people might go to a mental hospital, because I'm not a mental health professional, so I want to share the most accurate information. Yes, so at my hospital, there's an enclosed outdoor area. We went out there 2 to 3 times a day. We were supervised, but there was like a basketball court and some other sports equipment there too. So I was monitored at the hospital at all times. I mean, literally at all times. So you could definitely say that I received attention, but I did not receive much emotional attention. By this, I mean I didn't get much mental health treatment. The main goal when I was there, or what it felt like to me, was to make sure I didn't harm myself. So that was definitely good, but I didn't feel like I got much attention in terms of getting my mental health to a better place. This is such a good question. I ask myself this literally every single day, because most mental hospitals, or at least the experiences I've heard from others, are just so uncomfortable. And it shouldn't be that way, but it genuinely felt like a prison when I was there. So I hope we can keep spreading mental health awareness to hopefully help these mental hospitals become better places, safer, and just more comfortable. So I had been self-harming prior to me going to the mental hospital. There were a few incidents that happened pretty close to the time that I was admitted. So the major incident that happened pretty close to that time was I had run away from home in a psychotic episode, and during that incident I was injured and I had a lot of scrapes and bruises and I was injured in that incident. And after that incident I did start self-harming even more. I actually beat my face, and it was really at that point I decided that I couldn't keep myself safe. 100% honesty, the experience was terrifying. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone, but it was very scary. The one good thing about it was that I was safe there. It's kind of a give and take, because when I was there for those few days, it kept me alive, but long term it left me with trauma, and that's just my experience. Everyone has a different experience, but it's definitely a trade-off. It didn't take very long because I actually told them myself. Now, I'm very close with my parents. I knew that if I told them, they would be supportive, which is really fortunate in my situation, because a lot of people can't go to their parents and tell them these things, but I was able to go to them, tell them, and they were very supportive. So I'm actually not sure what all the differences are between the UK and the US, because that's where I am, is the US, in terms of mental hospital experiences and the mental hospitals themselves. But I do hear that there are some experiences in the UK that seem to be a little bit more comfortable. I could be wrong. I've never been to one there. So please leave a comment if you have been either to the US, the UK, and a mental hospital, so we can spread the most accurate information. From my experience, the staff were reasonably supportive. There was one nurse in particular who was super kind to me, made my experience so much better than it would have been without her. There was also one nurse who was not the most considerate or compassionate, but you know what, for all the stories that I've heard about the staff at mental hospitals, I had a very fortunate experience. So I was lucky in the sense that most of the staff weren't awful to us, but I have heard different stories where they're not great. So outpatient is basically like a treatment center or program that you go to, but you don't live there. I stayed at an inpatient mental hospital, and that was for the 5 days. During those 5 days, I lived there. I never went home. After I was discharged from the inpatient, I went to outpatient, which means I went to a program where I was going there almost every single day, but I did not live there. I just got services, treatment, therapy at that location, but I did not stay there or live there. I do not have the best answer for this, because literally I had no idea the entire time I was there when I was going to leave. Basically, the doctor decides when you are stable enough to go home. I don't know what exactly goes into that decision, but hopefully if you're stable enough to go home, you're not going to harm yourself or harm anyone else. For me, I found out when I was going home on the day that I went home. Literally just a few hours before I left, that's when I found out that I was going to be discharged. Now, fortunately for me, when I was discharged, I was sent to an outpatient program, as I've just discussed, so I was able to go home. But a lot of the people that get discharged from the inpatient hospital end up going to a residential. So they go somewhere else, like a house or a home that's specifically designed to give treatment and services to them, and they live there. So they're not in the hospital anymore, but they're not going home. When I was there, it was during the summer, so fortunately I didn't have that issue of trying to coordinate with teachers or schools to get all that work done. We did have time for therapy and schoolwork during the summer, but I didn't have any that I had to do. I'm not sure if the teachers sent the work or not in terms of going to the mental hospital during the school year. I have heard stories that some schools communicate very well with the hospital. They get all the work sent over, they're really staying on top of it, and some schools do not do a good job at all, and these people fall behind in school. So it's very much kind of just depending on how well your school communicates, I think. This is probably one of the most uncomfortable parts of the experience, is when I went there, I went to urgent care, and the thing that they do is during the evaluation, they ask you tons of questions about your mental health, but they also check you for your self-harm marks. So literally, mine was so obvious because I beat my face, but they check my wrists, they check different areas to see where your self-harm marks are. It's uncomfortable, but they do that. At least they did it for me, and I think I've heard stories that they do it for others as well. So I don't talk too much about it like in everyday conversations with people, but when it comes up, some people are very stigmatic and they just kind of get turned off. They don't want to be friends anymore or whatever. And some people very much understand and they want to learn more, or they just want to be there for me and understand that that's kind of where I've been in my life and that I'm working toward a new place, at least a mental place. And it kind of just shows you who these people are and whether they're meant to be in your life or not. It shows true colors. Interestingly enough, the toilets and the showers and the sinks are very prison-like. And what I mean by that is they're super, super cold and they're just like made of metal. And in terms of hot water, it took a very, very, very long time to get hot water. So literally, it's just better to just shower in the cold and just try to get it done quickly. Yes, you do have to eat there. That is one of the hardest parts for many people. It was a little difficult for me because basically what you would do is each meal, you would go to the common area, you would eat what you could eat. Then before you left the common area, you had to show your plate to the nurse. If the nurse felt that you had not eaten enough food, they will send you back to the common area and make you eat more. So you do have to eat there. Usually for me, at least in my experience, it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So don't worry about snacks or anything like that. But you did have to eat enough or they would send you back. Yes, so there is a schedule at the mental hospital, at least for mine there was. So when the nurse comes and wakes you up, whether you have a roommate in your room or you're just by yourself, they come and wake you up, and that's when you get up. They don't really kind of let you just linger around, you gotta get up. So those are the questions for now that I have for my mental hospital experience and about teen mental hospitals. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments, and maybe I can make a part 2 with more questions and more answers. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little bit, I don't know if enjoyed is the right word because it's a little bit intense, but those are the answers that I have for the questions. Thank you so much for everyone who sent them in. Please remember to follow us on TikTok and Instagram to join our community there. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!